Okay, so there are two parts of this sessions, and we are presented by two professors here. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. Xiwei Wang. Yes, Department Chair, Associate Professor, Computer Science, College of Business and Technology at Northeastern Illinois University. And the second part is Dr. Lai. He was here yesterday, okay? And we have introduced him yesterday also, Associate Professor at Western Connecticut State University. Okay, so let's welcome them again. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here today, and I'm very glad to join this conversation. As it was introduced, my name is Dr. Xiwei Wang, and I am currently the department chair and a professor of computer science at Northeastern Illinois University. And I also serve as the president of the faculty senate at the same university. And it's so glad to be here today and see everybody. So today I was asked to talk about AI and particularly generative AI, right? So today I'm going to spend some time focusing on the background of this technology, and then we're going to talk about the application. We all know that AI is a fancy word. And I can tell you, even my mom is talking about AI. She probably doesn't really know much about AI, but it's like everybody knows. People, I don't know what exactly an AI is, but we know it's important, right? Because everybody was talking about that. Just like a little bit a while ago, people were talking about cybersecurity, right? And a while ago, people were talking about big data. And they probably didn't really know what that one is, but we know that it's always a fancy word. So if you say AI, then people know that you're at the forefront of everything. So today, let's just talk a little bit about generative AI, because everything you think you know about AI today, basically, I'm not saying everybody, I think for general public, now when we talk about AI, what's going to be the first thing comes into your mind? ChatGPT, exactly. So ChatGPT, actually, the foundation of ChatGPT is what we call the generative AI, right? So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea of generative AI, and I'll talk about the neural networks, which is the foundational technology for generative AI, while understanding that we have a general public, we have people from different backgrounds. I'm not going to dive too deep into the technology itself, okay? But I want to make everything approachable. And then we're going to briefly talk about the generative AI models, and we talk about the statistics, where is it used and why it is so popular. And after that, I will talk a little about some very popular AI tools that you literally can start using it right off the bat. Okay, right after this presentation, and Dr. Vo is going to give you some hands-on practices. He's going to talk about how to use ChatGPT or generative AI in Buddhism, right? So you're going to see what are the tools available there, and you're also going to get a hands-on experience today. I guarantee you it's going to be pretty fun. And then we're going to talk about the limitations of generative AI and its security challenges. So after that, we can briefly talk about the future of the generative AI. What are we going to do with it in the future? Pretty sure everybody has a lot of ideas of how generative AI can actually help you and help you succeed and help you facilitate in your own job, right? So at the very beginning, I just want to have a brief introduction to artificial intelligence, okay, and machine learning. I believe everybody sort of heard of machine learning, right? Machine learning, it's just like machine is learning. Does that make sense? It's like we want a machine to learn something. It's really just like how we learn everything. I have a 2-year-old at home. He extremely enjoys watching some kids' songs, particularly have to do with dinosaurs. Okay? So when he sees a lot of dinosaurs, And next time when he sees something that is exactly or very similar to a dinosaur, he can tell me that's a dinosaur, right? And why he can tell me that? Because he learned over time. And this is exactly how human learns stuff. And machine learning is actually the same thing. Machine learning is out there to simulate, right, human learning process. So I just want to briefly talk about the relation among these things. You probably have seen, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody have heard of AI, and some people have heard of machine learning, and maybe a small portion of people who heard machine learning have heard of deep learning, because deep learning is a little bit deeper. Okay, so artificial intelligence really, just like I said, I mean, it is a technology that aims to simulate people learning process. It has its own intelligence. I wouldn't call it human intelligence because it's as it indicates, it's artificial, right? So try to simulate. And AI, I think AI recently gained a lot of attention, right? And everybody's talking about AI. But AI is actually not a new thing. And AI has been there for quite a while, for decades. And why people feel like, hey, why it's an old technology, right? And why it just recently got a lot of attention? I don't know if anybody have thought about that. So the primary reason behind it is, back in the days, I would say people have been drinking really big. We talk about robots. If you watch the movies like Transformer, or if you watch the movies like a Terminator, and there were a lot of fancy stuff in it, right? But back in the days, we felt like it's only in the sci-fi movies. But today, a lot of these things have become true because we have a lot more powerful computing facilities, data storage, and everything like that, okay? So it's not that this technology is new, it's really that the infrastructure that supports this technology has become available now. Back in the days, it was not available, okay? You can dream big, but there's nothing I can use to actually support my dream. So machine learning is actually a subset of artificial intelligence. So it focuses particularly on building models that helps you make predictions or things like that. So it aims to do different tasks. And then deep learning, as the name indicates, we bring it to the next level. Okay, so you're going to think deep, and you're going to actually do this task in a more comprehensive way. So we're going to talk about some of the details. So today, we're talking about primarily generative learning, generative AI. And generative AI is actually part of machine learning. It's a type of machine learning, okay? And when we talk about machine learning, there are different types of machine learnings here. So the first one is what we call supervised learning. And again, we don't necessarily need to be a technology guru, even after you take attend this presentation. But I think it's important that everybody gets some general idea of what machine learning is. Okay, we want to I know that people may feel like, oh, this is a pretty fancy word. Is that hard to understand? And today I try to make it very easy to understand. Okay, so the first one is supervised learning, which is, as the name indicates, you have a supervisor. So it's just like when you learn in the classroom, and you have a faculty member, you have a teacher that tells the kids, oh, doing this is right and doing that is wrong. Okay, so you have two labels. One is called right, one is called wrong. Does that make sense? And then in the long run, after the kids learn this and that, after a little while, when kids see something, you give them some new tests or some other questions or some other facts. You ask them whether this is right or wrong. They should be able to make their own judgment because there are only two outcomes, right and wrong. Right? So that's what we call the supervised learning. So you tell the students what is right and what is wrong, and then they learn over time, and then they can make their own judgment if they see something new. They can say, oh, this is right or this is wrong. But remember, in this particular example, there are only two labels, right and wrong. Right? Okay, so unsupervised learning is a little bit different. It doesn't have any labels. You basically tell the students, well, look, we have a few items here. We have a few stories here or whatever, statements. You tell me what do you think about them. Are some of them closer to like similar to each other, or some of them like very dissimilar to each other? Okay, so for example, if you have, let's say, a group of documentation, and you share the group of documents or articles with the students, and you probably let students find out exactly if there are any internal connections among these articles, right? For example, on Twitters, right? And they should be able to find a way to actually group these documents based on whatever criteria they may come up with. They may feel like, oh, these are the documents that talk about politics, and these are the documents that talk about technology, and these are the documents that talk about gaming, and some or travel or something like that. So they group everything based on some criteria you don't know. And then after that happened, we're going to look into these items and see in the same group, we'll find out exactly what are the common characteristics of the articles inside that group. So that's why we call it the unsupervised learning, because I don't give you a label, I don't give you a class, and you come up with something on your own. Okay, of course, based on some criteria. And here comes the reinforcement learning. So reinforcement learning is primarily used in something like robotics. And you probably feel like, how does those robots actually learn? How they can get a job done or get a task done. For example, let's say I have something in this room, and everybody probably feels like robots are pretty fancy things, right? I have something there, and you want your robots, say for example, the robots is here, you want the robots to go there, and there are different paths because there are obstacles anywhere, right? So the question here is, how does the robot actually find the best path to get there? When we say best path, is that it can bypass the obstacles, it can get there the fastest, right? So reinforcement learning basically means you tell it's basically what we call the trial and error kind of learning. So it makes some attempts, and then you tell it whether this is a good or not. Okay, so maybe the robots can go directly to, say, for example, that orange mug, right? Directly go to there. That's a great one. But maybe the robots go to anywhere. I don't know if you ever use the Roomba or any like a vacuum robots for you to clean up your floor. So some of these are pretty intelligent, and some of these, it drives me crazy. The one I had actually drives me crazy, because sometimes you see that it's right there. I wanted to get that spot clean, and it probably goes a big circle and then come back there, right? So reinforced learning here is you tell it whether it's good or bad. It's something we call the reward in it. Okay, I don't want to dig into the details, but the general idea is if you're doing a great job, I'll give you a better reward. If you do a worse job, I'll give you a little reward or sometimes even a penalty. In the long run, just like a little kid, he or she will learn, okay, this is a better way to do it because I get more reward. And then I actually improve myself over time. That's exactly important. That's actually very important in robotics because it can actually just learn like human beings over time, right? Now, being mindful of the timing, I'm going to now move on to the important topic today, which is the generative AI. I will have a Q&A time, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay. So generative AI, as the name indicates, is really a technology that allows you to, allows the model to actually generate something. So far we've talked about the supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Particularly in supervised learning, you have a bunch of data or a bunch of articles. You tell people this is a positive sentiment, this is a negative sentiment. So the model will actually classify the articles into either the positive or negative, right? But those are all existing data. Those are all existing articles. And we also talk about, unsupervised learning. Students can find out the connections between these articles to identify groups of articles or categories of articles. But again, these are all existing data. And we're dealing with a limited amount of data. Generative AI is a little bit different because it actually generates something new. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the two models. You probably have heard of generative models and discriminative models. So the one I just mentioned, that you're making a classification, you're trying to assign, you're trying to make a judgment and see whether this thing is positive or negative. That's what we call the discriminating or discriminative model. So you want to identify the class. And generative model, on the other hand, is try to identify some characteristics of these data. And then it generates the new data based on the characteristics of these data. So actually, it's fairly interesting because a lot of people may feel like, ChatGPT is so, it's like a magic because it actually can talk to you. It knows almost like everything, and it takes human beings forever to learn everything, and ChatGPT seems to know everything because it actually learned from the web, from the internet. Okay, so they have some kind of tools that actually can crawl on the internet, on the web pages. They learn everything. That's why they can learn a lot of things in a short period of time. That's what we call training. Okay, so in machine learning, that's exactly the term we used to describe the process where you develop a model, you have a model, and then you optimize it, and then you make it, you get it trained on a particular set of data. Okay, and for ChatGPT, it's more like the web and all the information and the text and articles on the internet. Okay, so I think I mentioned that a little bit, neural networks. And this seems to be a fancy word, but it is not necessarily a new technology. It's been there for decades. Okay, so this is the foundational technology for AI, and also for generative AI for sure. So neural networks, well, actually I omitted a term in front of neural networks. Originally it was called artificial neural networks. So basically that means we created something based on an analogy between this network or this structure and something else. Well, in this case, we're talking about human brains. Okay, so we have a lot of neurons in our brain. And we also have something called the synapses that actually connects the neurons. So basically allows you to exchange the signals, the electrical signals between the neurons. How do people actually learn stuff? So your neurons actually saves different information. So when we learn stuff, the information change over time. Every single neuron probably saves a tiny bit of information. But human beings have a ton of neurons in our brain. So we learn everything over time, and we develop our neurons. We change the information in our neurons and also these links between the neurons. So this is a very brief illustration of what neural networks look like. So these are the neurons, okay? And then you see these connections. So this is the input, like you give it something, and then it do some calculation, and then give some output. I'm going to show you an example pretty soon. And then when we talk about deep learning, we actually use something we call the deep neural networks as the foundational structure or technology. So the biggest difference you probably can tell is that all of these have an input. Both of them have an input and an output, right? The blue dots are output and the yellow dots are inputs. The only thing different is you see that there are multiple layers of the red dots on the other hand, right, on the other side than this one. So because this neural networks, this is also a neural network. It's just that it has more internal layers. We call this the hidden layers. Well, we don't, again, like I said, we don't want to dig too much into the detail of the technology, but I just want to show everybody. You've probably have heard of neural networks a lot of times, and this is what it looks like, okay? And this is another example, but this is more about a deep neural networks. This is something we call convolution neural networks or convolutional neural networks. And everybody knows Tesla has the self-drive kind of capability. Has everybody actually thought about how that one was developed? Why the car can actually drive on its own? It detects things around for sure, yes. And then how does the computer actually, it has a computer in it. How does it make judgment? Whether you have to do a turn, whether you have to avoid that pedestrian, whether you have to change the lane, yes.
As far as I understand, they have like a camera system around it, and it's like us, like we
Right.
see the object. But and then at that time they build in the processor inside of the car. So
Okay. Sure. That's a very good explanation of how everything works, like particularly from what happens on the road and then to how you make the judgment, right? So how does a computer actually see images? It doesn't really I think we're doing the similar thing and we're recognizing everything in a similar way, okay? But in computer, it's just a camera. The camera captures pixels. Okay, just like you take a picture with your iPhone or your Android phone, and then it actually saves all these digital bits in it. Okay, so it doesn't really save a picture, but it saves the digital information of the picture that describes the picture. So then, they have gone through a very kind of like complex processing, and then they feed everything into, this is what we call a deep neural network. Okay, so for example, in this case, this is how a computer recognizes whether this is, what kind of animal this one is. Okay, so this is a zebra, but it goes through every single thing from the left to the right, and then now we can see, in this case, it has made 3 predictions. Number 1 is the horse, with a confidence level of 0.2 or 20%. And then it has a confidence level for zebra, that's 70%. And this for dog is 10%. Which one are you going to go for? Zebra. Okay, I'm just talking about a general idea of what a neural network looks like. So coming back to the Tesla example, the question here is, how does it make the decision, right? The judgment. Should I take off the ramp? Should I change the lane? Should I slow down? And everything. You know, you can't simply just document all these rules. Or if there's this, if there's that, and then you do this. Yeah, of course, you can do that. But, you know, there are probably virtually unlimited number of rules that you need to save in it. And you can't exhaust all these possible combinations, right? So the way Tesla does it, I'm not saying exactly this is the way they do it. But in general, the way, you know, these systems are trained is, first of all, you record how human beings react, how human beings drive in different traffic situation and on different roads, right, road condition, everything. And then after that, you let the computer to actually learn from how human beings drive the cars. Okay, and then you basically use 2 things as the input to train the model. One is to have the driving record for the driver, how humans actually react to everything. And then you provide all these road conditions or traffic conditions to the system. So it's going to train because it's machine learning, right? It learns from human. And in the long run, it'll see, okay, when I see this, oh, human reacted like that. And then I'm training myself, okay? Definitely there are a lot more technical details out there, but I just want to let people know that, training this self-driving and picture recognition and all of these things, fundamentally, they use something like this, okay? And we can talk a little more about that if we have more time. But again, I hope by now people have seen exactly neural networks. Again, we don't need to be an expert on that, but I think it's important that we know a general idea of that. You probably have also heard of large language models because that's the foundational technology for generative AI. Okay? So actually, let me ask this question. Do we have any students in this class, in this room? None of our students. Okay, so, but I'm assuming we all work in different like industry, right? And you probably have sort of used ChatGPT or all kinds of generative AI, right, tools. We're going to talk about like image generation or video generation or something like that. Foundationally, a lot of these models are based on this large language models. So what are large language models? I mean, first of all, there are language models. Okay, so large language models is really just the models that not only are trained on a huge amount of language, like article, like text data, but also they can the model itself is also very comprehensive. Okay, it has a lot of parameters and materials in it, and this is probably a little bit too deep, too technical, but just in general, okay, I don't want to say too much about this. This is what we call a transformer. So everybody have watched Transformers in the past, right? Yeah. And it's so fun. But this is not like that. It has nothing to do with that, okay? So this is just an example of how you can actually translate something from English. I don't know if anybody actually reads German. I don't read German. I don't understand German. But this process actually shows us how the large language models can actually translate the text from one language to another. And I think for people who are interested, at least the only thing you want to remember is that there are two major components, an encoder and a decoder. Okay, those are the primary components of a generative or large language model. Okay, I can talk a little more about it if we have more time. Okay, but so far, I think it's important to understand that, the generative models, generative AI, is powered by large language models. Okay. All right. So here, I think we're done with all of the technical side. Okay. So these are probably the things a lot of people have already heard of, or you probably have used, right? So ChatGPT is something everybody probably have used. If you have never used ChatGPT, well, today we're going to set it up. We're going to help everybody set up your ChatGPT, and then you can play with it. And I can tell you, we all greatly benefit from not necessarily ChatGPT, but this generative AI tools and models. So ChatGPT, everybody knows that. Let me just ask this question. Has anybody never used ChatGPT? Okay.
I used it for the first time a month ago.
Okay. Did you like it or just don't like it and just stop using it?
It's helpful.
It's helpful.
But I
okay.
don't use, I have to take what they have and fix it on the way that for myself too. So not completely.
Sure.
Used all the data.
That sounds definitely reasonable to me. And I know everybody has different thoughts and different perspectives on GPT. Well, actually, how many people actually know what GPT stands for? It's a generative pre-trained transformer. So that's why I just mentioned transformer. Okay, so but anyway, I know people have mixed feeling about ChatGPT because especially if you're in education and you know that depends on how students actually use GPT, right? Because sometimes they may use GPT to help them complete their homework assignments. I mean, if they really know how to use it, they can actually learn from GPT how to solve a problem. But unfortunately, in some cases, because we work at a university and we see a lot of first-hand cases that some students unfortunately just use ChatGPT to help them come up with the answers to the questions, and that doesn't help at all. So the good thing is now not only the university have come up with some AI policies, like how you can use AI. Also, I think GPT recently came up with some new features that would actually serve as your personal tutor. So instead of directly giving you all the answers, it'll help you, it'll guide you actually come up with or move to that answer. So I think, at least GPT, OpenAI realizes that this is a problem. We need to come up with some solutions to solve the problem, right? So ChatGPT without a doubt, I think is probably one of the most used AI tools today. DALL-E, I don't know if anybody has heard of that. That's actually part of ChatGPT. Well, I don't want to say part of. It's now integrated into ChatGPT, but it's a model that helps you generate images. So today, I don't know if Dr. Vo is going to actually demonstrate any image generation, but no? Okay, but you can try it by yourself as well. Okay, so it does generate images for you. You give it some specification, this is what I want, and it'll generate it for you. Okay, maybe in sometimes it's just generate some very goofy images, but it's better than nothing, right? And you can never, ever just fully rely on that. But I think over time, it'll get better. Sora is a video generation tool that actually, so if you're a YouTuber, in some cases say, it takes me forever to use the video editing tools to come up with a very nicely looking and stunning video. Sora can help you. At least it can come up with some general ideas. All right. If it's in some cases you don't really need a highly sophisticated video, maybe this is the thing to go. Right. So you can use it to help you generate some brief ideas. Okay. So Sora is not integrated into ChatGPT, and I think you need to sign up for that separately. Gemini. We've heard of Gemini, right? Because it's from Google. There you go. Okay, so Gemini is more like an all-in-one solution. Okay, so it has the capability of generate pretty much everything. Okay, from text generation and text summarization, context understanding or comprehension, and image, video, pretty much everything it can generate. Okay, and then the next one, has anybody heard of that? Llama. That's from Facebook, yes, from Meta, right? So that's so far I have talked about ChatGPT, I've talked about Sora and DALL-E, and also here like Gemini, Cloud, Grok, they're all closed source models. And Meta is an open source, which means you can see all the source code, you can see how everything was programmed, and you're free to use their model for your own purpose. Okay, and you can also make modifications and to come up with your own model. All right, so that's one of the few open source large language models. So Cloud is from Anthropic. It is particularly strong in reasoning, like math reasoning and physics reasoning, things like that. But with that being said, it is also pretty good at text summarization, text generation. And Grok, I think I already mentioned that. Grok is from, I don't want to say it's from Elon Musk, but it's from his company, XAI, right? So this is particularly good at interacting with people on social media, particularly like Google, X, or formerly Twitter, right? So you can ask questions on a social media, particularly on X, and it'll generate answers. Okay, so these are very popular generative AI models. That does not mean there are not more. Okay, so there are actually a lot more out there, but these are the most popular ones. So we've talked about the general idea of the generative AI, the neural networks, and the foundational technology. Now let's take a look at the application, because at the end of the day, just like computer science, we always say computer science. A lot of people, they major in computer science, but think about exactly what you're going to use it for, because computer science is also just a tool. Just like generative AI itself is a tool. How could you make use of it? How could you use generative AI to help boost your sales? How can generative AI to help you make your life easier, okay? Or facilitate your job? So generative AI, you see, these are some applications like content creation. We've talked about that, right? So text generation, image generation, and video generation. Art and design, definitely you can benefit from that. Back in the days, if you have a picture, let's say we want to get rid of someone in a picture, back in the days, unless you're a master of using Photoshop, it's almost virtually impossible to do that. But now generative AI can actually help you easily get rid of that people and that person and make it look extremely natural. That's like a magic, right? Because generative AI actually sees a lot of things. Okay, these models, they sees a lot of things, and they can start to generate. Language translation, I just mentioned that. Actually, recently, I personally use it for a translation for my parents. I can tell you, it works extremely well. I use that to translate from English to simplify Chinese. It's flawless. I didn't have to touch any single spot of that translation. Okay. Chatbot, you use it a lot of times. Cybersecurity, you can use it to detect anomalies and then generate some automatically generates some warnings and alerts or take some actions on its own. Okay. Code generation, I don't know if we have any people who are in IT or programming or something like that. I'm also going to talk about a tool that you probably already use, GitHub Copilot. Okay, so you use that to generate code. Data augmentation is, for example, you have a small amount of data, but you actually need a huge amount of data. What are you going to do? You can throw it into ChatGPT. It's going to actually generate based on the same distribution of the probability distribution in the data. And personalization in marketing, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So this is a statistics that I just did yesterday, and I used ChatGPT. And why don't we use that, right? I mean, this is going to greatly help you expedite your work. And I give you another example before I jump onto this. A while ago, well, not really long time ago, we started doing some summer research, like in my university. And this is a collaboration between computer science and biology and chemistry. Look, I think I'm mostly dealing with computer science, right? Computers. So I don't know much about biology and chemistry. But that's a combination of everything. They want to use data science technology to help them do some data analysis and come up with some conclusion. The problem for me is that I'm not an expert in biology. But they actually share with me a couple of literature, like research papers, they want me to read. I mean, it's not only they're the terms I've never seen before. Yeah, I mean, I can spend time to understand all these terms, what they mean, but that's a research paper, right? It's not just like a dummies for, or a biology for dummies or something like that. So what did I do? I mean, it's a 10-page paper. I actually asked ChatGPT to summarize it. I can upload the paper. The paper is public. So I upload the paper to ChatGPT. I say, summarize this paper in very simple language that is accessible to general public. I did a pretty good job. That's what we call text summarization. Okay, so that's why we're talking about, how much adoption of this technology in different industries. So here we have, again, this is as of mid-2025. So you can see marketing and advertising, they seem to have a highest adoption rate. And then it goes to technology, and I'm not surprised. And then consulting, teaching, which is education, accounting, and healthcare. I'm pretty sure we have doctors in this room. Did you ever use?
Our clinic have a program where the doctor can talk, and
Okay.
there's a audio record,
Sure.
and then they're translated, in 9 phrases and sentences. I have not personally used it, but yeah.
Yeah, last time I went to the doctor's office, actually, he was going to use the same thing, but he just came back from vacation and he didn't get everything set up. But I said, does that break my privacy? So that's another thing. Okay, so privacy. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But he said, no, it's really just helps me record everything and then transcribe and then summarize. So it'll come up with a bullet point list that outlines exactly what we've discussed today. That's a great application, I think. So So that's that. And let's take a look at the right-hand side, the chart on the right. This is the AI tools used for marketing purposes, okay, in the US. I don't know if people can see it, but this is Jasper AI. So these are the tools, okay, primarily these are the companies, okay. So Jasper.ai, Copy.ai, DALL-E, Midjourney. I will go over briefly these tools, but basically these are all capable of generating images and videos. And some of these are capable of generating text, okay. So that's that. So here are some AI tools. I think a lot of people will be interested in this one, Otter.ai. Have you ever used Otter? I have never used it. But one of my faculty members, he have been using it for a long time, because every single time when he joined the Zoom meeting, it always says Otter. So what it does is to help you transcribe everything. When you're having a Zoom meeting, I believe that it's also available in different platforms, but a lot of cases we can just we can take notes, but it's not as sufficient as this one. It's going to transcribe everything. It can also help you summarize. So be careful of what you say in a meeting. I'm kidding. So actually, if you want to click on that Otter.ai, we probably don't have much time left, but if you get a chance, try Otter.ai, and it actually has a live demo. You don't really need to sign in anything. It allows you to try it out. ChatGPT, I don't think I need to talk too much about that. Everybody knows ChatGPT, and we're going to do a practice today with ChatGPT. Midjourney really helps you generate images. So I don't know if I can just click on that. You will see Explore. You will see these are all the pictures that were generated by Midjourney. So for example, if you click on that one, steady camera trains crosses the scene. So you provide some prompt. This is what you want from Midjourney. It's going to generate a picture, image, and sometimes video for you. Easy, right? Back in the days, because I'm not particularly good at drawing these things. Back in the days, it took me forever. Either I hire someone to do it for me, or I just gave up. Right? Because I'm not an artist. I can't do this artistic work. So, but today, as long as you're not so picky on the final quality, I think this is a great tool you definitely want to try. Okay, so it's coming back here. Alrighty. We would love your feedback. I can't see that here. Not now. Okay. GitHub Copilot. Okay. So it helps you writing programs, and I can tell you it's really fantastic. Back in the days, it may take you hours and hours to come up with a solution to something, and this one, just let it know what you want. It'll come up. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it gives you some working code. And of course, this still comes back to our conversations a little bit a while ago. You cannot fully rely on the tools, right? But use it more as an assistant or as a starting point, as someone who can actually help you make it better. Or you get some general idea or starting idea from the tool, and then you can improve it over time. Copy AI, I think if you are someone who is doing business or in marketing, Copy AI is definitely a tool you want to try out. Okay, so it helps you generate those marketing slogans and marketing text, articles, and everything. Most importantly, it offers this workflow automation. For example, sometimes you wanna come up with. I have something here like writing SEO articles. SEO stands for search engine optimization. So it can do that by itself. Why do you need SEO? Because you want to make your website more optimized for the search engines. So when people actually type some keywords, it's going to come up on the top, or at least at the front, right? So that's that. It can also connect with the customer relationship management systems, like Salesforce. right? And then it can connect to Notion, Coda. These are all like the collaborative working platforms. Okay, so people can collaborate using these tools on different topics. Okay, so this is Copy AI, and Jasper is another platform or another tool that does similar things. They're heavily targeting business and marketing and customer relationship and things like that. The primary difference between Jasper, like I said, Jasper is the most used in marketing according to the statistics, and Copy AI is the one next to that. So Copy AI, primarily if you're an individual and if you have a very small business, you probably want to try that because it's very easy to use. I'm not saying Jasper is not easy to use, but the learning curve is a little bit deeper. And it is primarily designed for bigger corporates, bigger teams. But I would say if you're ever in business or you're doing marketing, these are the tools. They have demos, and you definitely want to take a look. It's going to make your life a lot easier and your marketing, particularly like personalized marketing, a lot more efficient. Because back in the days, everybody will just send out all the, like in the TV commercials, everything is the same. It does not differentiate from one person to another person, right? Everybody gets the same message. And then you have the salesperson. Salesperson, if it's a good salesperson, they're going to spend some time building long-term relationship with their customers, right? And they understand your need, they understand your challenges, and they design a solution that fits your purpose, right? Fits your situation particularly. This thing is going to do it automatically. That's amazing, right? So, of course, again, you can't fully rely on AI, but that should be a good starting point, okay? I think we've talked about different AI tools. I would absolutely highly encourage everybody to try them out, okay? It doesn't have to you don't have to spend too much time, but at least got a general idea of what they are and what they can do. So I want to be a little bit fast. We only have a couple of slides left. So I want to talk about the limitation of generative AI models. So first thing first is the content quality. If you have ever used ChatGPT or Gemini or Microsoft Copilot, you definitely, in some cases, you feel like, great, it does a great job in response to my requests. But in some cases, you feel like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Right? ChatGPT, sometimes this is something we call hallucination. It can generate something that just doesn't make any sense. This is especially true with the older GPT versions. Now the newer GPT versions definitely, because they learn the training set is a lot bigger. So they have a lot more knowledge, so it's more accurate. But still, I would say if you want to use generative AI, make sure you're a domain expert as well. Because sometimes this hallucination thing will easily fool you, I would say. Okay, so you must have some background knowledge. Otherwise, it can generate something that is total nonsense, but is very convincing. Okay, so computational requirements, obviously, I don't know how many people knows that, or have you heard of, that actually the most important thing today is the energy. Because training this AI models consumes a lot of energy, like electricity. So that's why a little while ago, people, when generative AI or AI in general started to get a lot of attention, people started to invest in these AI companies like NVIDIA, right? Or OpenAI. But then, after a little while, people started to invest in those energy companies. Because without energy, there's nothing you can do. And that's part of the computing power. It consumes a lot of electricity. Biases and fairness issues. So this particularly talks about, in some cases, your model doesn't see big enough training set. For example, if you ask my son to tell the difference between a tiger, let's say, and a dinosaur, he must have seen a lot of pictures of tiger. But if he has never seen any pictures of tigers, he would say everything is a dinosaur. Does that make sense? Because the dinosaur is the only thing he has ever seen. So that's the same problem here. So if your model hasn't seen enough training materials it won't be able to generate the thing you want. So in some cases, like I just used the example, my son is biased because he feels everything is a dinosaur, which is not true, right? Because you can't really say he's wrong because he never saw anything else other than dinosaur, right? So that's the bias and fairness issue. Explainability and interpretability, those are more technical things because it talks about how you can interpret the model that was trained on different data. And sometimes we don't know, just like you can't really read people's mind by looking at the neurons, because that just doesn't tell you anything, right? So it's hard to interpret. Lack of common sense and world knowledge, that's also part of the one I said in the content quality. It generates sometimes very bad quality content is because it does not have the knowledge, okay? And there are also some security challenges. I'm not going to dig into everything, but let's say generally data privacy. Use ChatGPT, it always says, please do not share your personal data. Please do not share any confidential data. Why? Because all of your data is actually collected by OpenAI if you use ChatGPT, and it's saved on their server. So although they say, well, we only use your data for training purposes, we're not going to save any of your data. Well, it's up to you whether you believe that or not. Okay, but I would say that's some real concerns, particularly if you have a company and you want to outsource your AI models to a third party, and then you don't have control of your own data. So, but that's a different story. Okay, model misuse. Have everybody heard of deepfake? Okay, deepfake basically allows you to generate a video or a picture, so you have someone's body and have another person's face, and it looks flawlessly. That's scary, because it can easily allows you to impersonate someone else in the digital space. Okay, so that's the model misuse. That's just one of the examples there. Third-party risks, I just mentioned, lack of control of the data and also lack of control of the underlying models, because you don't control the model. You don't know how the model is trained, how the model is fine-tuned, how the model is modified. The only thing you know is I use a third-party model, and they take control of everything. So ethical considerations, you want to use your AI responsibly. So it's not only the technology part, but also from the legal side. Everybody, well, the government and the country and, at different levels, or your organization should come up with their own policies, regulations, and laws that helps guide everything to ensure that we're doing everything in compliance of the policy. We're not using it for any malicious purposes. I think that's all we have today. We talk about the general idea of AI, machine learning, and generative AI, the models, and some of the applications. We also talk about the challenges and limitations of the generative AI. We all know AI has a very bright future. It all depends on how you use it. It'll make your life better, but if you don't use it nicely, it can actually make our life miserable. I don't know if you saw a video that someone was actually fine-tuning and setting up a humanoid robot, and all of a sudden it got crazy. It started to turn and then kind of trying to hurt people. So that's a bad example of using AI, right? But I think the future is pretty bright, and I'm very confident that generative AI will play a very important role in the future of our world. So hopefully today you get some general idea, everybody. And again, like I said, I'm very happy to share this thing with everybody, and I'm very happy to have a conversation after this meeting. Or if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Hopefully you get some idea, and I would highly encourage everybody to try those things out. Okay, you will find it's actually very fun. I think that's all about this presentation. Thank you, everybody.